The first vaccine was a lie. They called it salvitas, a shimmering elixir pressed into the veins of millions. A promise that the body could outwit the plague. Instead, it carved the world into gods and monsters. The survivors woke immune but hollow, their blood teeming with a virus that no longer killed them, only coiled in their cells like a sleeping serpent. They became living prisons, their touch lethal to the untainted, their breath sowing death long after the last hospitals fell. Humanity's salvation was its own bioweapon. Now, the immune stalk the ashen veins of dead cities, half-alive things with eyes like cracked glass. They hunt not for food, but for the feral joy of erasing what they once were. The world's corpse is their cathedral, its ruin, their liturgy. Yet in the shadow of a crumbling fortress, a place where scalpels outnumber bullets, a secret festers. A child breathes where no child should. Her blood is clean, unmarred by the virus's stain, and within it pulses a paradox, antibodies that could unmake the plague, if harvested. But the cure demands a price written in bone and sinew, a sacrilege dressed in scrubs and syringes. Some call it a miracle, others, a curse spun by a spiteful universe. The medic who guards her knows the truth. Redemption is a blade with two edges. To save mankind, she must decide whether it deserves salvation. Outside the fortress walls, the infected sing their feral hymns. Inside, a single heartbeat threatens to undo them all. The question is not whether the world will end, it is whether it's worth rebuilding. Chapter 1. The ashen bastion groaned under the weight of its own decay, its steel ribs buckling like the bones of a starved beast. Seris Veyra traced the cracks in the lab's reinforced glass with a calloused finger, watching as crimson light seeped through the fissures, staining the room the color of old blood. Beyond the fractured panes, the wasteland sprawled, a graveyard of skeletal refineries and ash-choked rivers, where the air itself seemed to claw at the lungs. Somewhere in that smothering haze, the Carrions stirred. She could feel their hunger in the vibrations of the walls, a low primal hum that never truly faded. Tali slept fitfully in the corner, curled beneath a moth-eaten thermal blanket, her breath shallow. Seris knelt beside her, adjusting the IV drip feeding into the girl's frail arm. The monitor above the cot flickered, casting jagged shadows over Tali's face, pale, delicate, a flicker of life in a world of rot. The child's blood scrolled across the screen in glowing glyphs, a symphony of antibodies that could unravel the pandemic. If only, Seris thought, if only I could replicate them without carving her open. She'd spent 3 years trying, 3 years watching the Bastion's survivors dwindle, their bodies turning on themselves, minds devoured by the virus until they joined the Carrion hordes. A klaxon shrieked. Seris stiffened, her hand darting to the pistol at her hip. The Carrions had breached the outer gates. Kaelen Drath moved through the Bastion's underbelly like a ghost, his boots silent on the rust-eaten grates. The air here reeked of antiseptic and bile, a miasma that clung to his throat. He'd memorized the blueprints, knew the quickest path to the lab, to the child. Just a job, he told himself, ignoring the twitch in his left hand, the one that still trembled since the accident. Since the virus escaped his lab, he paused at a junction, his gaze snagging on a faded mural peeling from the wall. A sunlit meadow, painted by some optimistic fool before the world choked. His reflection glazed over it, a gaunt face, eyes like shrapnel, the scar along his jaw pulsing faintly. The husk's voice slithered through his earpiece. Kill the girl or we peel the flesh from your bones. Kaelen ripped the device out and crushed it under his heel. The first explosion rocked the corridor. He stumbled, catching himself on a pipe that hissed steam. Screams echoed above, mingling with the guttural snarls of Carrions. They were inside. Seris dragged Tali into the panic room, a vault buried deep beneath the lab. The child's eyelids fluttered, a whimper escaping her lips. Stay quiet, Seris murmured, brushing a strand of hair from Tali's forehead. The girl's skin was fever damp, her pulse a frantic bird trapped in her veins. Too weak, Seris thought, always too weak. She sealed the door, the hydraulics hissing like a dying breath, and climbed back into the chaos. The Carrions were everywhere, emaciated figures with eyes like cracked glass, their movements jerky yet unnervingly synchronized. Seris fired methodically, each shot a scalpel to the brainstem. They fell, twitching, but more surged behind them. A feral man lunged, teeth bared, and she sidestepped, driving her combat knife into his temple. The blade stuck, and she left it there. Retreating to the lab, she barred the door with a gurney. Her hands shook as she reloaded, the weight of the bastion pressing down. How many times have I done this? The answer coiled in her gut, cold and familiar. Until you can't. Kaelen found the lab by the blood trail, a carrion dragging its eviscerated torso toward the door, leaving a slick of black ichor. He put a bullet in its skull, and stepped over the corpse. Inside, the medic stood silhouetted against a bank of flickering monitors, her back rigid, a rifle braced against her shoulder. She didn't turn. "If you're here for the cure," she said, her voice a serrated edge, "you'll need to walk through me." He admired her posture, the precision in her stance, the way her finger hovered over the trigger without trembling. "A soldier then, or a survivor. I'm here to save you the trouble," he said, raising his palms. "The Carrions have rigged the lower levels with explosives. This place collapses in 10 minutes. Her head tilted slightly, enough for him to see her profile. Sharp cheekbones, a thin scar bisecting her left eyebrow, eyes that burned like magnesium. "And you're what? A concerned citizen, a realist. That child's a martyr whether you carve her up or not." She moved faster than he expected. The rifle's barrel kissed his sternum, her finger taut on the trigger. "Say another word about her," she whispered, "and I'll show you martyrdom." He didn't flinch. "There's a bomb in the east wing. I can disarm it. Or we can stand here until the ceiling eats us." For a heartbeat, he thought she'd shoot. Then she lowered the gun, her gaze slicing through him. "Try anything, and I'll gut you with a bone saw." They navigated the corpse-strewn halls, Seris leading with predatory grace, Kaelen limping behind. His leg throbbed where shrapnel had bitten him during the breach. He watched her, the way she checked every shadow, the efficiency of her violence. She fought like a surgeon, every motion calculated, wasteful of neither breath nor bullet. The bomb was nestled in the East Wing's reactor core, its display blinking a countdown. 4:59. Kaelen knelt, prying open the panel, wires coiled like vipers, red and black and gold. The husk's handiwork, crude but effective. "You're a bioengineer," Seris said, staring at his hands as they worked. "You recognize the virus strain." His jaw tightened. "I designed it." Silence. Then the click of her pistol's safety. "Look at me." He did. Her face was a mask, but her eyes, gods, her eyes were a storm. "You killed billions," she said, "and you've killed dozens." He nodded to the hall, where carrion bodies lay in heaps. "How many did you euthanize before they turned?" 10, 20. "Mercy has a cost, medic." The gun didn't waver. "Why are you here?" "Redemption's a fairy tale. I just hate loose ends." He snipped the gold wire. The countdown died. A tremor rocked the room. Seris grabbed his arm, hauling him back as the ceiling caved. They ran, coughing through dust and smoke, until they reached an intact corridor. She shoved him against the wall, her forearm pressed to his throat. "If you touch Tali, I'll make you beg for the Carrions." He grinned, blood smearing his teeth. "Noted." In the lab's dim glow, Seris stitched Kaelen's side, where debris had gouged him. He watched her face as she worked, the furrow in her brow, the way her lips moved faintly, counting sutures. She had a scientist's hands, steady and sure, but her touch was colder than the steel table beneath him. "You're close to a cure," he said, nodding to her research scrawled on a chalkboard. "Equations and genetic mappings, elegant and desperate. Close isn't enough. You need a retrovirus to stabilize the antibodies. Her blood's too pure. It'll reject any synthetic carrier." Her needle paused. "You've studied it." "I've studied her. The husk's been tracking your broadcasts." She finished the suture and stepped back, wiping her hands on a rag. "Can you do it? Create a carrier?" He sat up, wincing. "Maybe, if you don't knife me in my sleep." She threw the rag at him. "Sleep here. I'll be watching." Neath alone, Kaelen limped to the chalkboard. His fingers traced her equations, the loops of her handwriting. Brilliant, reckless, alive. He'd forgotten what that looked like. In the panic room, Tali coughed, a wet, rattling sound. Seris was at her side instantly, murmuring something too soft to hear. Kaelen watched through the cracked door, the child's small hand gripping Seris's sleeve. A memory speared him. His sister centuries ago, begging him to stay as he left for the lab. "I'll fix it," he'd said. He turned away. On the chalkboard, he scribbled a formula, a twisted helix of code that could bind Tali's cells to a synthetic host. A beginning. Outside, the Carrions howled. The bastions shuddered. But for the first time, it felt like something more than a tomb. Chapter 2. The bastion's heart beat in the arrhythmic shudder of failing generators, their hum a dirge beneath the static-laced broadcasts of the Carrions. Seris Veyra paced the lab's perimeter, her boots leaving ghost prints in the dust that settled like a second skin over every surface. Tali's fever had broken at dawn, leaving her hollow-eyed and brittle, a marionette with its strings frayed. The child slept now, her breath a fragile thread, while Seris's chalkboard equations loomed like a siege wall, promising salvation, demanding sacrifice. Kaelen Drath haunted the room's edges, a shadow with a limp. His fingers danced over the remnants of a gutted bioscanner, its innards spread across a workbench like a mechanical autopsy. He'd found the tool discarded in a supply closet, its screen cracked, its heart silent. Seris had watched him for hours, her suspicion a blade honed by years of betrayal. But he worked with the reverence of a penitent, soldering wires with a steady hand, his head bent low as if in prayer. When he slid the repaired scanner toward her, she said nothing. The screen flickered to life, casting her face in cyan. Tali's vitals pulsed, weak but steady. Seris's throat tightened. Gratitude was a currency she'd buried long ago. But she nodded once, a tilt of the chin that could have been mistaken for a tremor. Kaelen smirked, wiped grease on his trousers, and limped to the observation window. Beyond the reinforced glass, the Carrions massed like a storm, their silhouettes clawing at the smog-choked horizon. They're adapting, he said. Seris didn't look up. They're animals. Animals don't flank. She followed his gaze. The horde shifted, splitting into jagged formations, their movements too precise, too hungry. A figure towered at their center, a carrion with a skeletal frame elongated by mutation, its spine curved like a scythe, the husk, its jaw unhinged, emitting a subsonic wail that vibrated in Seris's molars. The bastion's lights dimmed, surged, dimmed again. It's coordinating them, Kaelen said. A hive-mind. The virus must have evolved synaptic threads. You sound impressed. I sound resigned. He leaned against the glass, his breath fogging the pain. Seris studied his reflection, the hollows beneath his eyes, the scar that puckered his lower lip, a man carved from regret. She wondered if her own face had become a mirror of his. Nightfall brought a lull in the siege, the Carrions retreating to the refinery ruins to feast on irradiated rats. Seris climbed to the bastion's rooftop, where the air tasted of lithium and rust. The stars were invisible, smothered by the eternal crimson haze, but the city's corpse sprawled below, its skyline a necropolis of shattered glass and twisted steel. She traced the edge of her pistol, its grip worn smooth by her fingerprints. How many rounds left? The answer slithered through her mind. Unwelcome. Not enough. Footsteps echoed on the stairwell. Kaelen emerged, his silhouette backlit by the emergency floods. He carried a dented canteen, its surface streaked with grime. You forgot to eat, he said, tossing her a protein bar. She caught it, the wrapper crackling like dead leaves. I don't need a nursemaid. You need to stay sharp. The husks broadcasting again. A portable radio hung from his belt, spitting static. Seris turned it on. The voice that oozed from the speaker was gelatinous, words slurred by a malformed tongue. Surrender the girl, or we will peel the walls from your bones. She crushed the radio under her boot. You built that thing. I built a weapon. The husk is what happens when the weapon thinks. Wind howled through the bastion's skeletal antenna. Seris unwrapped the protein bar, the taste of chalk and soy clotting her tongue. Kaelen sat beside her, close enough that their shoulders nearly touched. She didn't move away. Why did you save the bomb? She asked. He laughed, a sound like gravel in a tin can. You'd rather I let it blow. You had no stake in this. You're wrong. He plucked a shard of glass from the rooftop, held it to the light. I wrote the virus's code. Every death, every carrion, they're my epilogue. The husk wants the cure erased because it's the only thing that could make me more than a footnote in the apocalypse. Seris watched him. The glass shard trembled in his hand. And the girl, she's the footnote's asterisk. They sat in silence. Somewhere below, a pipe burst, vomiting steam into the shadows. The lab felt smaller now, claustrophobic with the weight of unsaid things. Seris injected Tali with a stabilizer, the needle slipping into the girl's vein with practiced ease. Kaelen hunched over his workstation, soldering a makeshift gene splicer from scavenged parts. His hands were precise, but his eyes strayed to Tali, to the way her small fists clutched the blanket even in sleep. "You had a family," Seris said. The soldering iron hissed. "Once." "What happened?" He didn't answer at first. The splicer sparked, casting his face in jagged light. "The virus reached them before the lockdown. My sister, she begged me to save her kids." Seris's hand stilled on Tali's wrist. "Did you?" "I couldn't." He set down the iron. "But I euthanized them, same as you did." The admission hung between them. A corpse on a gurney. Seris remembered the ward, rows of cots, the stench of necrosis, the pleading eyes. She'd locked the doors, flooded the vents with cyanide. Their screams had etched themselves into her dreams. "You think that makes us the same?" she whispered. "I think it makes us ghosts." Tali stirred, murmuring in her sleep. Seris smoothed the girl's hair, her fingers lingering. Kaelen watched, his expression unreadable. The Carrions attacked at twilight. They came through the sewers, their bodies slithering up corroded pipes, teeth gnashing at the bastion's underbelly. Seris met them in the boiler room, her pistol blazing. Kaelen fought beside her, a scavenged pipe wrench in hand, his movements clumsy but brutal. A Carrion lunged at Seris, its claws raking her arm. She gutted it with a combat knife, black blood spraying her goggles. Kaelen staggered, his bad leg buckling, and she hauled him upright, their gloves slick with viscera. "East corridor," he shouted. They retreated, barricading the door with a pallet of steel drums. The Carrions pounded against the metal, their shrieks reverberating like a dying engine. Seris pressed her back to the wall, her breath raw. Kaelen slumped beside her, clutching his ribs. "You're bleeding," she said. He glanced at the gash on his thigh, added to the tab. She tore a strip from her coat, bound the wound with clinical detachment. His skin was fever hot, pulse erratic, infection setting in. "I'll live, you'll slow me down." He grinned, blood smeared across his teeth. "Wouldn't dream of it, medic." They returned to the lab in silence. Tali was awake, her eyes wide and glassy. Seris injected her with another stabilizer, but the girl's veins protested, bruising beneath the needle. "It's not working," Tali whispered. Seris stroked her hair. "Rest." "Am I dying?" The lie tasted like ash. Kaelen found Seris in the archives, a vault of rotting textbooks and mold-spotted journals. She sat cross-legged on the floor, a tome open in her lap, its pages brittle as autumn leaves. Diagrams of viral strains blurred under her trembling fingers. "You should sleep," he said. She didn't look up. "I need a retrovirus, something to bind the antibodies without triggering an autoimmune cascade." He crouched beside her, his shadow swallowing the page. "You're missing a catalyst. The carrier needs a protein bridge." "I've tried every combination." "Not every." He plucked the book from her hands, flipped to a dog-eared page. "Here, use myomer fragments. They're elastic enough to withstand Tali's blood pH." She stared at the diagram, a spiral of proteins, elegant and lethal. "Where did you find this?" "I wrote it." Page 42. Their eyes met. Seris's pulse quickened. She hated how his mind worked, how it mirrored hers. Flawed, relentless, alive. "Test it," he said. "If it fails, then we fail." She took the book. He didn't let go. For a moment their fingers brushed, a spark of warmth in the archive's chill. The explosion tore through the lab at midnight. Seris woke to smoke and screams. Kaelen dragged her from the cot, shouting words she couldn't parse. The ceiling rained debris, concrete shards slicing her cheek. Tali's monitor flatlined, its screech piercing the chaos. The splicer. Seris lunged for the workstation, but Kaelen yanked her back as a beam crashed down, crushing the gene splicer to scrap. The husk stood in the doorway, its limbs grotesquely elongated, eyes milky with cataracts. It hissed, a sound like steam escaping a corpse, and lunged. Kaelen tackled Seris aside, taking the brunt of the creature's claws. They struck the floor, rolling, Kaelen's blood smearing the tiles. Seris scrambled for her pistol, fired blindly. The husk recoiled, snarling, and fled into the smoke. Tali's cot was overturned, The girl gone. Seris screamed her name, clawing through rubble. Kaelen gripped her arm, his voice ragged. Panic room. She's in the panic room. They found Tali curled beneath the vault door, her IV ripped out, blood pooling beneath her. Seris cradled her, fingers pressing the wound. Stay with me. Stay with me. Kaelen limped to the chalkboard, wiped away the ash obscuring their equations. The catalyst. We can still synthesize it. There's a backup sample in the reactor core. She's dying. Seris's voice shattered. He knelt beside her, his hand hovering over Tali's brow. Then let me fix this. She stared at him. The man who'd killed the world, who'd crawled from hell to help her save it. His eyes were raw, stripped of pretense. Do it, she said. The reactor core hummed with latent energy, its walls lined with cracked coolant pipes. Kaelen worked in silence, his hands steady as he fused the myomer catalyst to a vial of Tali's blood. Seris watched, Tali's head cradled in her lap, the girl's breaths shallow but even. Will it work? She asked. He didn't look up. It has to. The vial glowed, a soft bioluminescent blue. Kaelen handed it to her. 1 dose, enough to test. Seris hesitated. If it's lethal, then it's on me. She injected the serum into Tali's arm. The girl gasped, back arching, her veins lighting like circuits. Seris held her down, whispering nonsense, her heart a drumbeat of terror. Slowly Tali stilled, her breathing deepened, color blooming in her cheeks. The monitor stuttered, then steadied. Kaelen sank against the wall, his laugh a broken thing. Told you. Seris pressed her forehead to Tali's, tears cutting through the grime on her face. When she looked up, Kaelen was watching her, his expression unguarded. Thank you, she said. He looked away. Don't. Nearest dawn crept through the bastion's wounds, pale and anemic. Seris stood at the observation window, the cured serum glowing in her palm. Kaelen joined her, his shoulder brushing hers. The husk will come back, he said. Let it. They stood in silence, the cured light casting their shadows long and fused against the crumbling wall. Somewhere in the ruins, a carrion howled, a sound that no longer felt like an ending. Chapter 3. The bastion's walls wept rust, streaks of decay bleeding through the cracks like tears from a god long forsaken. Seris Veyra stood in the reactor core's pallid glow, the cured serum heavy in her palm, a vial of liquid starlight, fragile as a promise. It pulsed in time with the arrhythmic thrum of the failing generators, casting fractured shadows over Kaelen Drath's face as he rigged the dispersal unit. His hands moved with a mechanic's certainty, but his eyes betrayed the weight of the unspoken. They both knew what the machine demanded. A life, a spark. Tali slept in the panic room below, her small chest rising and falling in the shallow rhythm of borrowed time. Seris had drugged her water, a mercy to spare her the screams sure to come. The girl's blood had bought this chance, this flicker of dawn in a world choked on night. Seris tightened her grip on the vial. 1 breath, 1 step, no looking back. Kaelen's voice cut through the static. It's ready. The dispersal unit loomed, a skeletal tower of scavenged steel and frayed wiring, its apex jutting through the bastion's fractured roof into the smog-choked sky. To activate it, someone would have to ascend into the storm, manually ignite the serum, and endure the bioelectric backlash, a death sentence wrapped in lightning. Seris traced the unit's jagged edges. I'll do it. No. Kaelen didn't look up from the control panel, his fingers dancing over keys worn smooth by desperation. The husk knows we're here. It'll be waiting. All the more reason. You're the only one who can synthesize more serum if this fails. His thumb brushed the detonator switch, a crude thing, scavenged from the Carrions' own bombs. I'm just the architect. The word hung between them, rotten with history. Architect of plagues, architect of endings. Seris stepped closer, the vial's light painting his face in shades of cerulean and shadow. You don't get to vanish into martyrdom. Not after all this. He turned his gaze a scalpel. And you don't get to forgive me. A klaxon shrieked. The floor shuddered, dust cascading from the ceiling like a burial veil. Somewhere below, metal screamed. Neon. The Carrions came as a tide, a writhing mass of flesh and fury, their howls vibrating in the marrow. Seris fought from the bastion's central catwalk, her rifle spitting fire, each shot a punctuation in the dirge. Kaelen limped beside her, a jury-rigged flamethrower strapped to his back, its nozzle vomiting liquid fire into the horde. The stench of burning hair and melting plastic clogged the air. "East stairwell," he shouted, voice raw. They retreated, floor by crumbling floor, the Carrions clawing at their heels. Seris's boot slipped on a patch of gore, and Kaelen caught her arm, hauling her upright. His gloves left smudges of ash on her sleeve, a mark she'd carry longer than scars. The lab was a graveyard of broken glass and shattered hope. The husk stood amid the wreckage, its elongated spine curled like a question mark, milky eyes fixed on Tali's empty cot. It turned, jaws unhinging, and Seris felt the sound before she heard it, a subsonic wail that liquefied fear. Kaelen fired first. The flamethrower's roar drowned the husk's scream, flames licking its flesh. It staggered, burning but didn't fall. Seris emptied her rifle into its chest, rounds punching through sinew and bone. The husk collapsed, twitching, its final breath a rasping laugh. "Go," Kaelen said, shoving her toward the reactor core. Now, the rooftop was a slaughterhouse of wind and electricity, the sky convulsing in bioelectric storms. Kaelen strapped the serum vial into the dispersal unit, his hands steady despite the maelstrom. Seris climbed after him, the ladder's rungs biting her palms. "You'll die," she said. He smiled, faint and frayed. "I've been dead for years." The storm swelled, lightning fracturing the haze. Below the Carrions massed, their hive-mind severed but their hunger eternal. Kaelen gripped the detonator, his thumb hovering over the switch. Seris grabbed his wrist. "Wait." Her kiss was a collision, a spark in the void, brief and brutal. He leaned into it, a man starved for light, then pulled away. "Go to her. Live." He hit the switch. The world erupted in white. Seris stumbled into the panic room, the bastion collapsing around her. Tali stirred, blinking up through the smoke. "Where's Kaelen?" The answer lodged in Seris's throat, a shard of glass. She lifted the girl, fled through the crumbling halls, the ground heaving beneath her. Behind them, the dispersal unit's light consumed the sky, a star-going supernova. The Carrion screams faded, replaced by the crackle of cleansing fire. They emerged into the wasteland's embrace, dawn bleeding through the smog. Seris knelt, her fingers digging into the poisoned soil. The last of the serum glowed in its vial, a ember in the dark. She poured it into the earth. A blade of grass pierced the ash, trembling green as a heartbeat. Nus, epilogue. The stars returned first, timid pinpricks in the void. Then the rains, thin and acidic, but rains all the same. Seris walked the ruins, Tali's hand in hers, the girl's laughter a balm. Some nights she swore she saw him, a shadow in the storm, a flicker in the static, a ghost, or a wish. But the grass grew, and the world breathed.